everybody. Welcome back to Flipping the Barrel, the podcast where we interview energy leaders in this space to find out more about their career and life journeys. Today, this is a very special podcast. We are here live at Nabors in Houston, and we are joined with Subodh Saxena, who is a senior vice president here at Nabors, and we are just so excited to get to know a little bit more about you and your story. And so thank you so much for the invitation of coming here today.
No, absolutely. It's a pleasure to be hosting both of you. Thank you very much.
Yes, when Subodh reached out and said, hey, let's do it in person at our studio, we had to say yes. Of course, we did see Subodh at our event this past summer. Absolutely incredible. Your story is incredible, where you came from, how you grew up, the impactful women in your life. I mean, there's so many amazing things that has happened to you, and also some trials that you had to go through in order to get where you're at today. So we were very interested to not just be here, but be here in person, but as well just share that journey with our listeners. So to start, for those who might not know, you were born in India. You lived in a 2-bedroom house with 9 family members. Honestly, when you told me that, I couldn't even, it blew my mind on even how you managed that. And your parents were really big into education, which what we've heard in India is very competitive. So education is key to really getting out and being able to experience other aspects of the world. You also had learned some stuff from your grandmother and how she taught your siblings that happened to be more on the female side. And you were always kind of questioning, why is she so harsh with them and not with the men in the room? But as you grew up, you kind of realized why she did that. Tell us a little bit about your upbringing and how impactful that was, those moments with you in India, living in that house, seeing how your grandmother, really taught the children and really what that inspired you to do as you got older.
Absolutely. So first of all, what you ladies are doing is incredible to the oil and gas industry. So I want to thank you for that. And if I had a call with my daughters last night, and they have given me one goal that I should not say anything that can cancel the whole family. So my aim today is to not get canceled or cancel my family. So I'll try and keep it in that spirit. So having said that, growing up in India was a unique experience for me. And as a student or as a child, when you're growing up, you hear from your parents, from your teachers, from your coaches, one thing, which is you have to work hard. And the concept of working hard, I can understand, is because that is something that is within your control. And you want to if you work harder or you put more effort, outcomes are going to be better. That is the logic, I presume. But I think there is an event that happens in everybody's life, which they have no control upon, but has a significant value in my mind. And I'll kind of elaborate a bit on that. I think when a baby is born, they have no choice, or they don't make a choice which family they're born in, which country they're born in, or which decade or generation they're born in. And I think that is, in my case at least, very, very impactful. And I'll tell you why. I was born in a family which, though very humble in terms of their economic strength, but they gave me values which still stick with me and help me, especially when I'm faced with challenges in my life. I was born in India, and as you said, Jamie, that it's an environment that drives you to aim high. And that, I think, was another source of help for me. And the final thing is that I was born at a time when the world was moving from being a very insular world to being a global world, which created opportunities for me beyond the borders of my country. So what I'm trying to say is not just my hard work. There is these things that really helped me, which, if I had been born, imagine a child being born today in the US versus being born in Ukraine. I mean, it's no fault of theirs, but they may have very different lives. And maybe they have very great families, but still they may have very different lives. So I think I want to highlight the part which has really helped me to get where I am. And specifically about my family and my grandmother. My grandmother was a person who never took a decision in her life for herself. There was always a man who was unfortunately taking a decision for her. She was taken out of her school when she was 12 because her father thought that education was not really relevant because you're going to be a wife and mother soon, and why do you need to study? And by the age of 17, she was married, and then she had 8 children. And unfortunately, my grandfather passed away within a decade of the last child, and she was left to manage this family with no education. And she was always pushing her daughters more than her sons because she wanted them to have a life where they could take the decisions. So she focused a lot on education. She focused a lot on their financial strength, that they would be independent financially. So for me, what I learned from that is that the empowerment that you can provide to others to set them up for success is something that is so important. If I can do something that helps others to be empowered, that I'm setting them up for success. And the second thing that I really learned from her on a personal level as well is that she was very interested in the surroundings. She used to always tell me, we're going to go to a park and just watch the nature. And I never really understood that. In fact, she planted a mango tree because mango is very common in India. And she planted a mango tree, and she said, this is going to grow, and you will see how it will branch out and really grow and learn based on the surroundings and adapt to the surroundings. And that I felt was a very important lesson that she taught me, is that if I have to be successful, I have to be really branching myself out. I have to have the ability to learn new things and at the same time also adapt to the changing environment that would be happening. So I think those values have really stuck with me, and I'm really happy that I had that family, that country, and that generation or that time. So I give a lot of credit to that as well.
Thank you so much for sharing. And just looking back, sometimes it's your upbringing without realizing, as you're going through all those things early on, you don't know where it's going to take you. And you needed to go through that and have that kind of family and that environment to be where you are today, because you wouldn't be here today if your life didn't play out that way.
Absolutely. If I was born in some other country with some other family, I don't know what that life would be.
Yeah.
So I reflect a lot on it, what has been given to me. And so, yes, absolutely, yes.
So tell us a little bit about going early back into your career. How did you get into oil and gas? Was that a big thing while you were studying? Was this an industry that you had your eyes on? Did you have a path after graduation? What were your aspirations?
So growing up, I had primarily 2 options. I could either study engineering or I could be a doctor, because that was the
only 2, the typical, yes.
The best in your life, right? And I hated biology, and dissecting an animal was not my thing. I mean, so I said, okay, and I was good at math and physics and chemistry, and I thought I'm going to pursue this. So I went to engineering because the other option was not really that great for me. And joining oil and gas industry was, I knew nothing about oil and gas industry. My family members didn't know about it. My neighbors didn't know about it. I would say the whole city probably didn't know anything about it. And I joined oil and gas industry, not because of oil and gas industry, because of Slumber and the paycheck that they were offering me. And that's a shallow answer, but that's what my driving force was. In fact, funny story, when I joined Slumber, I used to work for 2 months on, and I used to get 2 weeks off. That was the rotation that I had at that point of time. And obviously I was earning much more than when I was not earning. And when I used to come back, I used to, anybody who gets new money, they try and show it off. So I was buying stuff and all that. And my neighbors were convinced that I was smuggling. It's only a matter of time when I will be in jail because I was going to Middle East. They thought I was smuggling either gold or contraband. Because every 2 months I'm gone, and
you show up with something nice.
And show up with something nice. So they had a bet going on how how many days or weeks it takes before I land up in jail. So didn't know anything about oil and gas industry, but
They're like, I was just a wireline field engineer. That's it. Yeah.
wireline field engineer, enjoying my life. And yes, so
Yeah. No, talking about your career, your first role was actually in Egypt. So you had the opportunity to leave India, go to Egypt, but you also had met your wife in high school. So she was very supportive of you, supportive through your whole entire career. And we'll get a little bit more into all of the countries that you have been and worked in where your wife kind of had to give up her journey as well to be able to support you and the family. You even recently told us today that at your 20-year anniversary with Slumber, you gave her the watch as just a token of, your gratitude for her. What was it like when you did first start? And did you think that you would travel to all these different countries and also bring your whole family with you? Because I believe it was 10 different places that you lived in, if I recall correctly. Would love to know if that was kind of your envision when you started, or if that was just something that just happened as your career grew.
So I had no grand plan of any sort. I mean, there are people who, when I joined, I thought that this is great money. I will see how it goes. Maybe they'll fire me, because Slumber was famous in letting people go. I said, so I never planned too much, because I had heard and the recruiters had told about the cyclicality of our industry. They had told this is a highly driven organization, and they said, you join the wireline, you go to the training center, there are 21 of you, more than likely only 40% of you will pass. Mm-hmm. That is how it was. We had an attrition rate of in excess of 50%. So I never planned that what my life would be. I didn't even think about children, for that matter. I had no idea that we would be having children. I think I knew that I wanted to marry this woman, although she had other options.
Yeah.
I don't think I had any other option, but so yes. So no, I did not. I took it as life brought me, and Slumber gave me the opportunities. The only thing I always did is I always said yes to any opportunity that was given to me, and I think that was valuable to me, because if I had said no, then maybe I would be somewhere else. But I always said yes, and my family always said yes as well.
So talking about all those moves that you said yes to, 10 plus countries, it's hard sometimes to adapt to the culture, to the working environment, to the customers, etc. How did you deal with all of these moves, especially this many? And when you have children, it gets harder for them to, they want to see their friends, etc. So tell us a little bit about just how did you manage that internally, because you also have to go to a new work environment where now you have a new team and a different country and excel in work, but also your family when you come home and maybe they're unhappy with the city. I don't know if all 10 went amazingly well. Maybe there was one where it was a little bit more challenging. Can you share a little bit about what you did when it was challenging and you've already taken that leap and you're here and you got to make it work?
Yes. So I would say, were there challenges? Absolutely yes. Were there tears in the eyes of our daughters? Absolutely yes.
Yeah.
But I think, again, credit to my wife on how we managed these transitions. I think one of the realizations that I had and my wife had was, despite the fact that we lived in 5 different continents and 10 different countries, the people are pretty much the same. Their motivations to succeed are the same. Nobody comes into work to say that I'm going to do a bad job. Everybody wants to be successful. They want to be treated well. They want to be empowered. They want a career opportunity. And I think that really helped. And Slumber is a great company and also helping you adapt to the new place as well. So I think from the work environment place, I was able to adapt, because Slumber was Slumber. Yes, there were uniqueness in the culture and the operating rhythm of that each country, but the people were, as I said, the motivations and the stress factors were all the same. But my wife did something very, very important. A couple of things I could say. The first one was that she made sure that we always enjoyed what the local country had to offer, whether it was the cuisine, whether it was the culture. I learned Spanish, my wife learned Spanish and Portuguese. So we always tried to assimilate ourselves in the local culture. my wife wears this badge of honor. She performed at the carnival in Rio. She was one of the performers, and that is
Massiel.
that
Yeah.
she had. She and I, when we worked in Venezuela, we went to the Amazon rainforest and we spent, about 4 days living in the jungle with some of our Venezuelan friends. So we really tried to appreciate what each country had to offer.
Mm-hmm.
And that also builds up respect, and you demonstrate respect to the local people. So I think that really makes them, they welcome you because you're showing interest in their country.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that my wife, Richa, always made sure is that people always asked, like you asked, Massiel, which is the best country that you've lived in? And she made sure that we not only say, but we believe that the country that we're living in is the best. The present is the best.
That's a good way to live. I like that.
And our children really, embrace that. And this way, they flourished. I would say that.
I love that you mentioned that, because I think so many times, especially in today's environment with social media and everything, we're always in comparison game. And it's always comparing the last experience from the experience you're in today. And if you just were to live in the present and to be just excited to even be in this new country, and they all have something to offer, like you had mentioned, I really love that y'all embrace that. I want to talk a little bit about, you've been to all these countries, you moved up in your career. What do you think makes you different? Because there's obviously different personality, or maybe there's something that you connect with people on, or that has made you stand out. Because for Slumber, for instance, even to be there for 20 years, move up like you did, it's a massive company. You're talking about 100,000 people plus that you're competing on these roles with, and you had the opportunity to continue to advance. Is there anything that you think made you stand out? Besides, you did mention earlier that you would say yes to all these new opportunities, but is there anything else, that advice you could give our listeners on maybe something that really helped you grow in your career?
So the way I see that is that to progress anywhere in any company, Slumber included, yes, your effort matters, but I think I was lucky, or Slumber had a great set of people. I had, and also in Nabors, by the way, I have had a great set of mentors and a great set of bosses who have offered me opportunities to diversify my skill set, whether geographically or in terms of product lines as well. So I think, and that is, I believe, not because I'm special, because these mentors and these bosses really want to do this for everybody. And I took the opportunity, and maybe some people could not take the opportunity for various reasons. And I believe I give a lot of credit to those people because they made those opportunities available to me. To maybe this is an opportunity to share what matters to me or what are my values when it comes to work environment. And I think whether they are differentiators or not, I do not know that, but this is how I operate in my work life and in my personal life. I think the first thing that matters to me, I joined the industry or the work environment in my early 20s. I was 22. If I'm going to work till I get Social Security, which is 67 or mid-60s, that's 45 years of work.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically, it's a long game, which means that you really have to have endurance. I run. I don't do sprints, but I run half marathons. So my point here is that my thought process is also, what am I doing? Because I have to work for a very long time. Okay, now I don't have much time left, but the point here is
it's a long journey. Yes,
is so important. You have to think long term, and endurance is very, very important. A perfect example is Warren Buffett. It's a cliched example. This man made 99% of his wealth after he turned 50, and he's 93 today, and he's still going. And the same goes for our CEO, Tony Petrello, who's in late 60s. But I can tell you, this guy he's a firecracker on a daily basis, because the drive that people have, irrespective of their age, I think is phenomenal. So I think endurance is something that I firmly believe in, and I practice that in the way I think and I approach. The second element is that I don't believe I want to be the best version of myself. I'm not competing with anybody else. And that is so important for me because there's always somebody who's going to be better.
Yeah.
And there is everybody who's taller than me. So I have to make sure that I am only focused on what matters to me, which is, can I be better? And I think that really also helps because I'm not that jerk who's trying to make myself look better by testing out other people. So this makes also people are more likely to help me because they know I'm trying to do this too.
You're genuine. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I think that's my second, let's say, value. The third one is, which you kind of touched upon, Jamie. I don't know whether it's my DNA, whether it's my makeup. I do not suffer from FOMO at all. And I think it really helps in my mental health, physical health, and financial health because I have no fear of missing out on anything, right? And the last part, which is still a process in work, is I take my job seriously, but I don't take myself seriously. And that has been a bit of a challenge for me in corporate America because executives are expected to be a certain type. They have to always portray a certain amount of gravitas. And I believe I have gravitas, but I think I like to create a fun environment in my workplace. And maybe that's good. Maybe it's not. I think
I think it's good.
Can answer that, but
I think leadership has changed over the years, and we always tell people, but the new generation, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for genuine, open, fun, this old school, like we have it put together type of thing at all times, and we never let our guard down. We don't look up to that stuff. You know, I think the new generation really wants the leadership to be humanized and just like a normal person because someone you can relate to, and that's who you want to work for. So I think you're doing a good job.
Yeah, because I know I'm not perfect. I'm far from that. I'm perfect, right? But I like sarcastic humor, and I notice the women at work are more sarcastic with me than men are, and I love
they feel comfortable.
Yeah, so that's a process in work, but these are my values, and I said whether they are differentiators or not, I do not know that, but that's what I practice.
Thank you for sharing that. And on the leadership journey discussion is, you know, it is hard to be a leader in today's world. It's ever evolving, and it also looks quite different than when you started, you know, in your early 20s, and just maternity, paternity leave, unconscious biases at work, more and more women wanting to come into corporate and climb the corporate ladder. So it's different. And so as a leader, you know, how are you keeping in check in a way? I mean, you've got two daughters who you said keep you in check. Yeah. Can you share maybe any stories of maybe your daughters who said, like, sometimes, you know, you have blinders and blind spots that maybe you don't know about. How do you as a leader keep in check to make sure that you are, you know, doing your best job with this evolving landscape and just talent?
Yes. So I think you answered the question. I have two daughters, and I also have some work daughters. So my daughters are my biggest supporters, but they're also my biggest critics. You know, I learned the word mansplaining from my younger daughter.
I love it.
Said, you are mansplaining. And then I'm just repeating what they probably said or my wife said. And, you know, so they call me out when I'm mansplaining, when I'm talking over them. And that has really sensitized me to things like that when I see that happening at the workplace. But I think the most valuable lesson that I have learned from my daughters is that they have shared some of the challenges which as a man I never shared. And I'll give you a few examples of that. The first one being they live in America, both of them, they don't feel safe in walking alone at night. And I never felt like that in my life because I'm a man and I have been to very difficult and strange places in my life. So what does that mean is that situational awareness that they need to have is heightened. And today, although, I'm in bed by 9 p.m., I'm a boring guy. But if I ever go out for a dinner with a work colleague, and there happens to be a woman, I make sure that I walk her to her car, because I have learned this thing from my daughters that, look, they don't feel safe sometimes when they're walking by themselves. So that's one thing. The second thing is that the biases that exist in the workplace that they have faced, or at least the older one has faced, sometimes men talk down to them. There is definitely pay disparity. So we have these open and honest conversations about things that they feel are not right and not fair. They do not see very many women who are in leadership positions, and then they question that, why is it like that? And they are also aware of the fact that their mother gave up her career, despite the fact that she is a very capable engineer. She gave up her career to bring them up. So they see that, that the mother has a role to play in the home, very, very valuable, but why can't they do both the things, right? So I think having those conversations with my daughters has really helped me understand and appreciate how women think, especially the women of this generation. And that helps me, and I can always go and discuss those with the women who work in Nabors and get their perspective. And, just like the example that I said about my grandmother saying, branch out, it's about seeking multiple perspectives. And that really helps me also learn and adapt to the new way of learning. So I think that I'm blessed that I had daughters which
keep you in check. Yes.
Exactly.
On that topic, you did spend 20 years at Slumber, then you transitioned over to Nabors. And I remember you mentioning when we spoke, like, there was differences culturally, but more importantly, even how we found you was because you have so many female supporters. You've helped so many women in their career, but not in a way that you felt that, it's a deserving way. They're good at what they do. They deserve a role. It's not because they're a woman, I'm going to help them. And I want to make sure people realize that, because there's a lot of stigma around, well, you placed that woman in that role because you needed, that count, or if there is some sort of metric that you're trying to meet, which is something that we really try to avoid. But, you have been able to do this naturally. You connect, you can see the advancement and the requirements for some of these women to have these roles. And like I mentioned, you were highly recommended by a lot of female supporters. What have you seen here at Nabors that had really changed the culture and how you were able to help the women and mentor them? But more importantly, even today when we met some of your colleagues, y'all had increased paternity leave, increased maternity leave. Like, the company listens to those around them and actually implements change. Tell us about how you were able to step in and do some of that yourself, but as well as how can others follow in your lead? Because I feel like so many men want to be a supporter and they just don't know how, and they don't know what they're doing wrong.
Sure. So I'll cover, you raised a lot of good points. I'm going to
break it
cover one. So the first I'll talk about is my change from Slumber to Nabors. So when I came from Slumber to Nabors, that was a cultural shock, especially having worked for Slumber for more than 20 years. And the difference, if I could explain it to you, is that in Slumber, decision-making is very clean and crisp, in the sense that there are maybe 2 or 3 variables that are taken. How does it impact the bottom line? How does it impact, is it a customer-centric decision? And then there is an element of longer term, how does it help from an employee point of view? When I came to Nabors, the decision-making, the biggest element was actually consensus-based decision. The feelings of the people, of the multiple people who were involved in that decision-making was really an important factor. And I really could not wrap my head around it, because, it is very difficult to get a consensus-based decision when, especially when you're talking about multiple executives. So, and I really struggle with that. But in maybe 2017, 16, 17, Nabors took this incredible decision of reorganizing and transforming the company. And kudos to two people, Tony Petrello, our CEO, and Ziggy Meissner, who became the president, the de facto CEO of the company. They made the decision-making completely the same way as how it should be, which is clean and crisp. And that gave me hope that Nabors can actually transform itself. And the rest is history. I have really enjoyed working for Nabors, because now it is a company which is driven based on what matters the most to the company, which is, people, profit, and technology at the end of the day, right? And of course the customers as well. So then now, how has this changed help in the terms of the more equality or women? So I think the way I see this is that it is, and I'll use my example on how I practice it first, maybe. So, it is easy to take a high potential person, whether a man or a woman, and then mentor them and get them to the next level and to the next level and to the next level. But I think that is easy to do because that person is a high potential person. I think it is far more difficult to take a person who is very, very capable, but they lack kind of confidence in their own abilities. And I hate to say this, somehow women have that more than men. I don't know whether you agree with that.
Yeah.
That is.
Yeah. No, we see it all the time. Yes.
And I feel that picking up those men and women, and more women, I would say, who have the abilities, have the competence, have the skill, but instill that belief in themselves, have that conviction, to build up the conviction in themselves that, look, I can be as good as anybody else, is far more difficult. And the way I have practiced this is, in my 11 years, I have had maybe 8 assistants. And it's not because they are actually, I hire assistants with the sole purpose that they have the ambition and the drive to move ahead. And this is an entry-level position, pays a very, small wage, but I go through the process of selecting, and unfortunately only women apply for assistant jobs. I have never been able to find a man, but that's a digression. So I select these women and I create opportunities for them by exposing them to other parts of the organization. And I would like to say that a lot of these women have really done exceedingly well. In fact, I have not yet found a woman in my career who, when they are given additional responsibility, they have failed.
We're really good at that, at multitasking, taking on the extra work, adding on more.
And I think that there is something in it, because I think women have a much stronger sense of self-awareness. I have never met a man who I have offered a job as a promotion and they say, I don't want this because I don't think I can do this thing.
Yeah.
But women say, look, I'm not sure that I can do this. And they come with humility and they come with a mindset that, look, I am going to be successful, and they put their heart and soul in it. And I think this is kudos to those women who actually have embraced and found that conviction in themselves to be successful. So I am just that enabler to make that happen.
Thank you for sharing. I think a lot of people find this useful. As Jamie mentioned, there is a lot of men that want to be more supportive and get involved, but they just don't know how to even get started. But even something as your assistant, and I love that. And by the way, I wanted to say, when your assistant chef, she was your assistant, I was like, she's the assistant? I thought she was like HR or, something else in the organization. So it just showcases that she's got great potential. 2 quick questions before we end. It's more of like a funner type of question. So both of your daughters are obviously starting to work. One is an intern, the other one's full-time. What is a piece of advice that you've given them maybe on their first day, or maybe just one piece of advice on working in corporate America to be successful?
So I think as a parent, and we spoke about money and my relationship with money, how it was before, and I don't have the same relationship with money anymore. But as a parent, what do I wish for my children? A, they are happy, but most importantly, they have both the physical and the mental courage to face the challenges that they have. And I think that is what I wish for them all the time. The money, success, titles are a consequence of how you approach your life. And I think if they have the right mindset, they do not have that doubt inside themselves ever, I think they will be successful. So I think that is one big element that I want to pass on to them, is that you really need to have that courage and conviction in yourself to drive changes in the organization. The second piece of advice that I have learned by myself is that adaptability is important, but being change agents is equally important. And the example that I told you about Nabors, moving from Slumber to Nabors, it is, if I had just adapted completely to Nabors and I said, I'm only going to do this decision by consensus and I'm only going to drive what is politically correct, I probably wouldn't be here and I wouldn't be able to make the same level of impact. So I think adaptability is important, but being a change agent is as important.
I love that. Okay, last question is, give us your daily routine. What time do you wake up at? What does your workout look like? What do you eat for breakfast? How do you like your coffee or tea? What's your nighttime routine? And we want products too. So if there's any products you want to throw in there, we'll take it.
Okay. So I mentioned I'm a early sleeper, which my wife hates, by the way. Last night, she went for a comedy show with our friends, and
you had to prepare for the podcast. You had to sleep well.
I don't know whether I prepared well, but anyway, I wanted to sleep.
Yeah.
Because for me, sleep is my caffeine.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't drink coffee in the morning. I normally wake up. I sleep by 9:30. I wake up around 4:30, latest by 5. I either go for a run, or I normally go for a run. I don't do a lot of gym. So that's my, and then because I'm driving in and I am talking to my people in the Eastern Hemisphere, so that's my typical.
Certainly.
And it's all hands free, by the way, so I'm not holding my.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So I'm normally doing calls. I don't have lunch. I do intermittent fasting. I eat. My assistant calls me a squirrel because I eat only nuts and fruits during the day. And I go home and I eat the whole house.
You're starving.
Famished, so I eat whatever is available, and my wife is an excellent cook. So do that. We spend some time together. I mean, that's one thing. Eating together
is a big thing.
Especially when the children was with us, but now it's my wife and I. Mm-hmm. We eat together, and
you're a vegetarian too.
I recently became a vegetarian.
Okay.
Yes, getting old sucks. That's so I became a vegetarian the 1st of January.
And then in terms of nighttime routine, do you finish work emails at a certain time, and then you like to sit and read a book and meditate? Yeah. What do you do at night?
I don't. I typically don't work. I don't take work home.
Okay, that's good.
That is not my thing, unless there is something important or critical. But I don't take work home. When I go home, I try and
spend the time with your wife or do something.
Be present, because I think being present is important. So yes, I do. In addition to my alter ego wants me to be a comedian, but I suck at comedy. But that is that's my dream.
That could be your retirement.
Yes. I do
We
really.
would watch.
I hope so.
We've got a client here.
Somebody would be heckling. Somebody needs to.
Somebody would be laughing.
I do want to. I'm big into writing children's stories. So I do write children's stories because I used to tell stories to my children, and this was it combined Indian mythological characters with cartoon characters of the US, the Disney characters. So I kind of combined them and told stories. So I've written a couple of them, but I don't know what I'm going to do with those.
Subodh, we've always loved your story, and it was so incredible just getting to know you and be here today at Nabors in y'all's podcasting studio. Beautiful studio, which I know we mentioned in the beginning, but it really is incredible. And it's just so nice to be sitting across from you and not on like virtual screens like we were going to do it. And just hearing everything over again, it just inspires me. And I know Massiel the same on where you grew up, how the women in your life are impactful, but also how you took that and you used it versus, there's a lot of stories where, they had an impactful grandmother or their mom was a single mom and that influenced them. But you actually took that, you used it in your personal and your professional lives. And I'm pretty sure your daughters are super proud of you. And I'm pretty sure that also the entire Nabors team is probably extremely proud of you. Come on in. Come. So we mentioned that there's so many women that you have impacted.
They all wanted to come say hi.
So if you're listening to this podcast, not watching it, there's like 20 women walking in right now.
Be on the camera.
Yes.
This is a surprise that the entire Nabors team wants to put together.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much.
So hope you guys enjoy the podcast. Stay tuned for the next one. And thank you to all the ladies at Nabors who are here to thank Subodh for being a man for change and a true ally.